is the game of the week. CBS, you finally got one. You finally got a big regular season game. They've kind of gotten the short end of the stick in this Big Ten television deal, but they got the Indiana Hoosiers, the 7th-ranked team in the land, going on the road to Autzen Stadium to face off against the 3rd-ranked Oregon Ducks. The line on this game started at 10.5. It is now down to 7.5 in favor of the Quacks. The over-under is 55.5. Vegas expecting a good amount of points, a lot of offense in this game. Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS. Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson, Jenny Dell will have the call. So much talk about quarterbacks. And these are two of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza are in the top 5 in the Heisman Trophy odds right now, and rightfully so. But as good as they are, and they're really good, and their play is going to go a long way to determining which team wins this game, I think this game is won or lost at the line of scrimmage. This game will be decided in the trenches like all Big Ten football games certainly should be. I want to take a quick rewind back to last year for Indiana, when they faced off against Ohio State, when they faced off against Notre Dame. Now, I get rosters change, a lot changes from year to year. I'll kind of explain the similarities in just a minute. But overall, this Curt Cignetti, Mike Shanahan scheme, they averaged 2.2 yards per carry against the Buckeyes and against the Irish. Those defenses were able to shut down the run game. And this is a RPO-heavy scheme. It is everything is really centered around that specific type of concept within what the Hoosiers want to do. Fast forward to this season, okay? The game that they've struggled in, the game at Iowa in their last contest, both teams coming off of a bye, by the way, so there's plenty of time for both Dan Lanning and Curt Cignetti to prepare for this contest. But Iowa gave up just 2.7 yards per carry in that contest. And I think like there was a clear blueprint, and I think there was a clear game plan that Iowa put forth in that game against Indiana. First of all, it was winning the battle at the line of scrimmage. It was their defensive linemen playing on the other side of the offensive line. They got a lot of tackles for loss in that game. They were playing really well. That's just the battle first of all. And then they blitzed 66% of the time. And then the corners on the outside, which I thought Indiana would have an advantage and would make like difficult for Iowa. But Iowa stepped up to the plate. TJ Hall, Deshaun Lee, etc. They all stepped up to the plate. And they played tight physical man coverage. And those are 3 concepts, and that is a blueprint that can be used to defend Indiana's RPO system and RPO scheme very efficiently. Like, it's been proven. If Indiana can't run the football, that makes things a lot more difficult to get this timing-based offense really going in the right direction. I think they had everybody talks about Mendoza, and everybody talks about the passing attack against Illinois, but look at the yards per carry against the Illini. Nobody was touching them until they got like 6 to 7 yards down the field a lot of times. It's the run game that really starts Indiana's success going down the field. And then we take a look at Oregon's last game. Oregon is coming off a game where they held a Penn State rushing attack. I know a lot has been made since that loss, and of course Penn State's loss to UCLA, but I still think that Penn State has a better offensive line and a better run game that, in terms of talent in the backfield, that Indiana does. And not taking anything away from the Hoosiers, I still kind of feel that way about Penn State. And this is more about Oregon than it is about Penn State or anything else. But Oregon held Penn State to under 2 yards per carry in the first half, and that springboarded them to that big victory a little bit later on during that game. I know Penn State kind of got it going a little bit later, but overall, Bear Alexander played the best game of his career. Amari Washington played like Amari Washington has been playing in the middle out there. And here's what I want to say about Indiana's offensive line and why I compared this to last season. You've got 3 returning starters on this offensive line from last year, and I don't know how much better they are this year. I know there's a lot that goes into returning production, and automatically it's assumed that, if a guy's returning, he's going to be this much better or he's going to be that much better. But I don't think that's the case. I think the right side of this offensive line for Indiana, not very good. Like in pass protection specifically, the 11 pressures against Iowa, 6 of them were allowed by the right guard and the right tackle. What is that? Bray Lynch and Khalil Benson, I believe it was, on that side. And then you look at Oregon. Like, if you're Indiana, you better do well on first down. You better do well on second down, because what we saw from pass protection of Indiana against Iowa, and these are better players up front of the defensive line for the Ducks than it was against the Hawkeyes in the last meeting for the Hoosiers. If you get into 3rd and 6 or longer, Mateo Uyunglele, Tatum Tuioti, they're going to wreak havoc. And they're probably going to wreak havoc a lot during this game. So I could just kind of look at that matchup at the line of scrimmage, and it's tough. It's going to be a tough go for Indiana. I think they got to try to scheme something up. Do you kind of get off some of these quick passes and see if you can create 4, 5, 6 yards on first down that way? You know, do you maybe do some more quick hitting plays instead of the longer developing, maybe RPO type of stuff? You know, I know Fernando Mendoza gets rid of the football quickly, but is it just catch the snap and deliver the ball and let the guys create in space? I don't know. I know that I think it's going to be a pretty difficult matchup for Indiana in this game, but I'm really curious to see how they go about this. I think on the other side, Indiana has a smaller defensive line. Tyreek Tucker is the only significant player on this Hoosier defensive line that is plus 300 pounds. And this Oregon offensive line is one of the biggest offensive lines out there. Can Oregon engage and stay engaged and get this run game going a little bit? The thing I look at when I look at Indiana, they're smaller, but they're athletic and they're aggressive and they're quick. So if they can shed blocks, they could really disrupt what Oregon tries to do in the run game. Indiana plays a lot of zone coverage. They're going to get D'Angelo Pons back for this game. That's their top corner on one side. I think outside of Pons, Oregon's got a big-time matchup, I think, on the outside with the amount of weapons that they can throw at you. With DeCorian Moore, which I assume they're going to try to get D'Angelo Pons matched up on DeCorian Moore as much as humanly possible, but Malik Benson, Gary Bryant Jr. coming out of the slot, Kenyon Sadiq, of course, the tight end, in the middle as well. Like, if Oregon, Isaiah World, Alex Harkey, if they can hold up against the Mikhail Kamaras of the world and some of these other athletic pass rushers on Indiana's defensive line, Dante Moore is going to be able to pick apart that zone defense. I firmly believe that. I think he can have a lot of success going down the field. So, Dante, we've seen it. He's a cool customer. You get him at Autzen, you get him at home, it's going to be a tough go. It's a tough place to play. Indiana is the last Big Ten team to go into Autzen and get a victory. You go all the way back to 2004. A lot of people have been throwing out that stat this week as well. So, I think the more I dove into this game and the more I broke it down and the more I watched recent games of the Hoosiers and the Ducks, the more I tended to favor Oregon, especially considering that they're going to have that Autzen Stadium crowd behind them, ESPN Game Day. It's going to be a big game atmosphere. And if we know one thing, a big game atmosphere, Autzen can sometimes put the crowd in and of itself, the 12th man, they can put a few more points on the board in favor of the Oregon Ducks.